Welcome to the Leading Ladies podcast with international leadership coach, speaker, author, trainer, and your host, Fiona McKay. The Leading Ladies podcast shares stories and advice from women around the world who have successfully navigated the glass ceiling. You'll gain powerful insights into strategies for cracking the glass ceiling, embracing your self-worth and value, and advocating for yourself and others. So please join Fiona for frank, courageous, and heartfelt conversations designed to take you on a journey to new levels of personal and professional success.
Welcome, everyone. It is so good to be back. Today, we have a real treat in store for you. Our guest today has always been reaching for the stars. From her early days at Space Camp to working for Lockheed Martin, In Situ, and now startup company Overwatch Imaging. Rachel McKay, who is not my sister, although I kind of wish she was, has always been one to watch, with many other projects and missions that she has worked on, literally changing the course of history. Today, she's here to talk about confidence and specifically what it means to turn bravado into badass. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks for that stellar intro. I'm excited to be here and be a part of this. This is wonderful. I'm excited to be here.
We are so happy to have you. I am loving just building my network of women now in space and UAVs and all the cool stuff that you do. So I'm really pleased to have you here.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So my opening question, Rachel, is what are your thoughts on the glass ceiling? Do you think it still exists?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's something like less than 10% of women who are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. If that's not a statistic that proves that the glass ceiling exists, I don't know what is. And then I think it's even more so relevant in the aerospace industry.
And what does the glass ceiling signify for you?
For me, I think that there's just a lack of representation at that highest of the highest levels, a voice, the female voice in the room. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here today we're going to talk about confidence and bravado to badass. Now, what was it that made you want to talk about this today?
Yeah, I have always struggled with confidence. And like that self-confidence, having that voice inside of you that doubts that you should be having a seat at the table, that you should raise your hand and state your opinion. And so what's helped me along the way is creating this alter ego or this facade of bravado so that my bravado gets me in the door and at the table and raising my voice so that my knowledge and skills and ability can be there to get the job done and do the work. So for me, that's what helped get me where I am today.
So your bravado got where you are today.
Yeah.
But you're saying that despite you having that, you aren't necessarily always confident.
Correct.
And,
yeah.
You know, when I sit down and read your bio and I see you that you're on the leadership team of a startup company, I'm like, well, this woman's clearly going to have bags of confidence. So tell me a little bit more about you and some of the struggles that you've had with confidence throughout your career.
Yeah, I think I'm going to even take it back a little bit further. I think, being the only woman in a college course about aerodynamics or planetary atmospheres, to just look around and not see any allies, or I'm sure there are allies, but to not be able to easily recognize them kind of puts you off and sets you off in this protective stance immediately from those early days, formative years of your career and your path. So I think going from coursework where I'm one of maybe 3 women in the whole concentration into an industry that is so heavily male dominated and that has been so heavily male dominated for decades. So not having those recognizable mentors or confidants or things like that in the room with you can be scary. So for me, it was kind of having to be able to walk into that room, be different than everybody else, but still be able to roll up my sleeves and get the job done.
Thank you for sharing. So what I'm hearing is that the lack of role models and allies in the room in some ways maybe led to some self-doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, having that self-doubt is probably something everybody has, male, female, anything. And it's just not having somebody to have a sounding board that for me was a challenging early in my career.
So there's something to be said about getting some of your confidence from others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of my my badass plan of action here is that it's really important to find those fellow badasses, to find those people that are in your group that you can be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, to ask advice from and kind of spitball with and have a sounding board. And also when you need it, have somebody that can be there to kind of kick you in the pants and say, come on, Rachel, look at your experience. Look at what you've done. You got this. You can handle that. And that goes a long way for me personally. And I know for other people in similar situations, being the only female in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember a coach of mine once telling me that you were the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So being around people that can instill that in you and believe in you is just so important. So who are some of the people that have had just massive amounts of belief for you in your career?
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate along the way. And I think that's part of my success is that I have found those people. And so I've had female managers, or I've had friends and confidants who we share a cubicle together, or, sit down the hall and we go to lunch together. I've always been able to find that person who's like, man, they're working on something really cool and they're really providing a big impact. And I've just kind of gravitated to them and found those confidence that way. People that I admire and people that, I think likewise come to admire me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And so what I know of you is that you are quite a bubbly, outgoing character. So I know that you have no issue, finding those people, talking to them. For people that are maybe a little bit more shy, or they've not been lucky enough to have that female role model in the office, what would you say to them if they're...
Or I have an example maybe that I can share. Yeah. I had a female engineer who I happened to be out at a social event with, and she said, I'm really looking for a mentor, but I'm afraid to ask anybody. And I said, why would you be afraid to ask for, that is a huge compliment for you to go to somebody and be like, I really admire what you're doing and I would like you to be my mentor. The mentor might have to decline for lack of time or something like that, but there is nobody that I know on this earth who wouldn't be flattered by that and happy to participate if you presented it like that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a theme that keeps coming up in my podcasts. People seem to be shy to actually ask for what they need.
Yeah.
So, what if you're feeling a bit shy, what do you do to find the confidence to ask for what you need?
I take time out. I recognize that. I make a point to recognize, okay, I'm hesitating here for some reason, for whatever it is. And I take a moment to pause and reflect on that and say, what's happening? Why are you avoiding this? Or why are you pausing here? And then I pump myself up. That's that bravado piece. So I'm like, we're going to do this. We're going to come at this. Come on, let's get this. And I pump myself up, give myself a pep talk. I used to play sports in college and high school and all through growing up. And that's part of it, right? Before you go out on the field, you gotta hype yourself up. So I find a way to do that for myself when I'm feeling a little shy or a little tentative about the next thing that I'm going to approach.
So some sports, some music, some pep talks, just different things to get yourself going.
And the thing that I have a lifted purple, huge, loud truck. And if there's a meeting that I am nervous to go to, like a new customer or something that I'm just kind of like, ooh, this is new. I'm a little nervous. And I start to feel that feeling. I get in my truck and it's a 50-year-old truck. The thing is loud. And I drive that and people either get out of my way or they wave at me in encouragement. By the time I get where I'm going, that has helped pump me up. Like I'm walking, I jump out of that truck and usually I'm wearing high heels, stilettos. So it's probably not as graceful as it could be, but my bravado showed up a mile down the road before I ever got there. And I'm ready to go. So having something where you can put it on, or you can see it before you go a place, or you can get in your big, huge monster truck and show up at the meeting, helps put you in that mindset. And you lose some of that, like, oh dear, what am I going to do attitude when you have that kind of token.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that you said to me when we spoke on the phone previously was about fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how you feel when you're driving the truck?
No, my truck is just me, alter ego. But I think there is a piece of that where it's okay to fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as you are learning and growing along the way, you're gaining new experience, you're gaining that confidence because, oh, I gave this speech 2 weeks ago to a different customer. I know how to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
The more experiences that you can gain, the more ways that you can put yourself in different situations, grow out of your comfort zone, the easier it makes it next time around. So.
Oh, fantastic. And how do you think that, confidence, bravado, badassery, how do you see them relating to the glass ceiling?
Yeah, I think my story on this is that for me, if I don't see something in action, I don't visualize myself in that situation. So without the confidence of knowing that there's been another female with a similar background or similar experiences to my own in that like CEO seat, I never considered it for myself. So if I couldn't see it somewhere else, I couldn't visualize it for myself. So at In Situ, when Asina Alec became CEO, that was the first time where I was like, oh, hey, like maybe that's something I could aspire to do. Or maybe one day, like I will have gained enough experience and I'll be able to be the CEO of a Boeing company. Like how cool would that be? And it wasn't until I saw somebody in that role that I wanted it for myself.
And do you feel like that has allowed you to pull yourself through the glass ceiling?
I think that was the first time when I saw Asina at the helm. That's when I started to look around me and say, okay, what's my next step? My next step is a director level. So how do I go about and get that director level position? It definitely gave me like more fuel for my ambition for how to get there and the steps along the way.
And at what point did you think, you know what? I have broken through it. I am through that glass ceiling. When did you have that realization?
I think it was the first time that I heard my manager say like, okay, this is my executive leadership team. And I was like, oh, wait, hey, here I am. I'm in the room. I'm on the executive leadership team. I think, having that recognition has helped be like, okay, we're making some progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really like that you shared that when you talked about the recognition. Sometimes people say, oh, you don't need to ask for validation and it's okay. Just believe in yourself. And I think that it is good to hear it. And so, it's important that we communicate with our managers, hey, I want this. And when I get this, I want to be recognized for it. And the same for my friends and family. But a lot of people are often afraid to ask for that. I hear it all the time from my coaching clients. What are your thoughts on that in terms of asking for the recognition?
Yeah, I've seen that before too with people that I've mentored along the way, where, and maybe it's not asking for the recognition, but it's I'm afraid to ask for that thing that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? If you don't ask for it, nobody's going to know. I was managing, I think, a team of like 25 people. There's no way that as a manager at that level that I can know what everybody wants.
Yeah.
And I personally really appreciated it when somebody would come in and be like, that job, that assignment, that challenge, like I want it. Like, hell yeah, like let's get you on that.
So the big thing for you is, hey, if you want to break through the glass ceiling, go ask for what you want, figure it out, go after it.
Absolutely. And not only that, like, don't be afraid to do it, because if you show your ambition, if you show that you can get the job done, that's only going to continue to open more doors for you along the way.
Beautiful, beautiful. So going back to confidence, what differences have you seen in confidence of your male colleagues versus confidence of your female colleagues?
Yeah, I think I notice this a lot as a hiring manager. I will get people that apply to a position, and they maybe the males won't have the experience or the skills. Versus if there's a female that I know would be great in that role, and I go approach her and say, "Hey, have you considered applying to this?" And she'll say, "Oh, I don't meet this one bullet point," and I'm like, "Girl, come on! Like, I am the hiring manager. I'm telling you, you should probably apply." But I think females focus on the things that they don't yet know and can't do, and men focus on kind of their ambition and their past experience, and it's just different. They're both valuable in their own way, but I think women could take a lesson and stretch themselves a little bit and try something new that they maybe haven't done before, and feel the confidence, I guess, to try it out and see.
Yeah. But sometimes, unless you're fortunate enough to have that person in your life that has tapped you on the shoulder and said, you can do this.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of women out there who don't know and who don't go after the job.
Yeah.
So, how do women like you and I get out there and spread that message? How do we tell people you are good enough? Like, what have you done to reach out to the female community and encourage them to really go for it?
Yeah. So first of all, you can find my bio on LinkedIn. Look me up if you need that, like, kick in the pants that we talked about. I'm happy to be a sounding board for you. There's no greater reward than helping another woman excel and achieve what she's trying to do. I love doing that. So I'm happy to be a resource for anyone in the audience. And then second, for my own self, it's like I talked about before. I surround myself with people who are badasses, because it's important. It's important to have like-minded people with the same drive, the same ambition, and they don't have to be in the same field. They don't have to be in aerospace. You can find that person like in your sister. You can find that person in your neighbor. It could be anywhere. Just find those people and surround yourselves with them, and find a way to connect.
Yeah, not just in the office. They're everywhere.
Oh, no. Yeah,
got to be looking for them.
Yeah, my favorite person is my kid's best friend's mom. Like, we would have never found each other if we didn't go to the same daycare. But she's phenomenal, and I use her for a sounding board from everything to what I do with my career to where my next vacation is. Just finding those allies and those like-minded people are important.
Yeah. And just building on what you said on LinkedIn, I just, another idea I'd like to throw out there is, we could be posting more to encourage women to break through the glass ceiling. We could be putting ourselves out there and say, hey, check out this job description. You might think that you don't have everything that it takes. I'm going to challenge you on that. Like, what do you think? Do you think women could be using social media more?
Absolutely. I think our tendency is to not brag, so maybe designating Fridays as brag day, or something like that, where you're getting yourself out there, you're proud of what you've done. Why does it still feel weird to me to be like, look at this cool thing I did, everyone. I made that thing that took that picture of the sun. Isn't it awesome? I say that in my house. I say that to my friends. But why should it be so hard for me to post that on social media? Because I don't want people to think that I'm bragging about how great I am. So I still struggle with utilizing social media to my benefit.
You have just given me a great idea. I think Leading Ladies needs to start Fabulous Friday.
There you go.
Where everybody who's part of the group post something fabulous about themselves every Friday. So thank you for that idea.
Hey, you're welcome.
I'd like to take a moment to pause and recognize GM Defense, our sponsor that helps make this podcast possible. GM Defense is driving the future of military mobility by leveraging the best-in-class capabilities of General Motors for unmatched innovation, proven performance, and breakthrough lifecycle economics. Learn more at www.gmdefensellc.com and watch out for new job posts as they expand and strengthen their team. You can also follow them on Twitter and LinkedIn. The GM Defense team is amazing, and we are proud that they sponsor the Leading Ladies of podcast. And back to today's guest. So, in terms of the title of this talk, Bravado to Badass,
yeah,
to me it suggests that there's something different between bravado and badass. So, what do you see as the difference between bravado and badass?
That's a great question. I think that bravado is maybe, it's kind of that like pump you up, get your foot in the door, get your seat at the table, like put your elbows out, claim your space, versus badass. Yeah. Versus badass is, you don't have to make that show. You don't have to have that front. Badass you can do from your office behind the closed door. You're just getting your stuff done and you're doing it well and you're executing. So I think that is perhaps the difference.
You see badass as more internal work.
Yeah.
Whereas bravado's external.
Yeah.
And so what does badass give you that bravado doesn't?
I think badass is long-term sustainable. I don't have to exhaust myself when I'm being badass, because that's inside. That's who I am. Versus bravado, I gotta like put gas in the truck and I gotta like warm it up before I take off. There's not as much effort and expenditure put into it versus that bravado, which is the front.
I love that distinction. That is awesome. It's kind of like in my coaching, we call it essence and survival mechanism. I'm almost sensing that bravado is more your survival mechanism because you're getting by against the people that might be pushing back. Whereas with your essence, it's coming from within.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when did you first realize that you owned some badassery?
We should cut that.
Nothing wrong with a bit of laughing.
Yeah. I think confidence is still something that I struggle with. So I am still working on checking my badassery box. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason is that because I'm continuing to push myself and grow. What I'm doing this year is not the same as what I was doing last year. It's not the same thing that was doing the year before. But if you asked me to go back and do that thing that I did 2 years ago, I would feel confident and capable and like be able to do it no problem. So I think that badass claim is kind of something that continues to grow with you along the way as you gain experience, as you gain knowledge, as you try new different things along the way.
So it's almost like badassery is like a muscle that you're building.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. And what have you taken on to build that badassery muscle? Like, what are some exercises you do? What are some things you've changed about your life to actually go after that?
Yeah, so I think the thing for me is that I am always trying to get out of my comfort zone. I get excited now. Previously, do you know that feeling that you get that's kind of, oh my God, I'm terrified, but wouldn't this be really exciting? Like that mix between fear and excitement. Mm-hmm. That used to be a trigger to me to be like, oh, this is scary. I'm going to like not do it. I've tried to flip that around now into my own mental framework to be like, okay, I'm feeling that feeling. And so now I know that this is getting me out of my comfort zone. and this is going to be a great opportunity to learn something new, or this is going to be a great opportunity to try something else and discover something new about myself or about a skill that I didn't have before. So rather than shying away from it, now I run towards it. And so that's how I'm flexing my muscle, or that's how I'm growing that badass muscle, is I continuously find ways to challenge myself. I continuously find ways that get me out of my comfort zone. This is my first podcast. I've never done this before, so this is new. But who knows? Like in next year, I'm going to do 10 podcasts.
Start your own. Yeah. And so what was that moment? What happened? What changed to make you say, you know what? I'm going to get outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I think.
How do you realize that was the key to your growth?
Yeah, it's successes along the way. I have a good work ethic. I have the great experiences. I have those skills and those abilities. So the more wins that I had along the way, it only kind of fueled my motivation to want to do more.
So recognizing your wins.
Yeah.
And how do you recognize your wins?
I'm a pretty goal oriented person. So I always have my goals that I have set and I'm trying to achieve. And then when I achieve those big ones, celebrating those successes.
What about your small successes?
See, this is unfair because you know me.
A little bit. See, what I will say, Rachel, is I know that you celebrate some of those big successes, like the promotions. What about the small stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder to me. We shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. We shouldn't always strive and achieve for more. It's something I'm personally trying to work on. And remind ourselves how awesome we are, how far we've come, even at the small milestones and the small successes.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm going to celebrate when I get the great job, or I'm going to celebrate when I get the great promotion. I'm going to celebrate when I buy the house.
Yep.
What are some little things? Just think about this week that's just happened.
Yeah.
Like my husband got on my nerves and I didn't get into a big fight with him, that's a success, isn't it? And what are some, and I think we should recognize, not just the stuff that we do, the stuff that we don't do, hey, I woke up today and I was nice to people before I had coffee. What are some things that you think you could celebrate yourself for more?
Yeah, I think I could celebrate myself more. I guess one thing that I ask myself at the end of every day was, did I earn my salary today? Did I do something that positively impacted the business? And then I think about, okay, what was it? What did I do today that earn my paycheck or help the business progress? So maybe that's one thing.
And some personal things?
Oh man, asking the hard questions now.
You know me.
I have a 4-year-old son. He's almost 4-year-old son. And in him, I'm trying to instill a lot of these things, gender equality, understanding our feelings and why they're important and why we shouldn't just like get mad and kick the dog, those type of things. So for me on the personal side, when I can see him reflecting how he's going to be a wonderful human being and a wonderful adult, those are my personal successes that I take on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, I personally don't have children, but I know that a lot of my friends with children, they can look at their kids and actually realize hey, I created that.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes children can be our greatest gifts. I rely on my dogs, but I imagine children can be pretty inspirational.
Yeah.
So what would you tell a young woman in your office? All right, these are some tips for growing your badass muscle. What would you tell her?
Yeah, I think there's some simple, easy steps to do. I think I keep referencing this sit at the table, but that's something that I didn't do as a intro junior engineer. I would walk into a room and I would sit as close to the door as I could, as far back as I could. So like something as easy and behavior changing as that, as when you walk in the room and there's a spot at the table, go sit at the table. Yeah. And maybe you're still too shy to speak up and say something, but now you are in the front of the meeting. You're present, you're there. So that next time when you sit at the table, the person next to you might be like, hey, what do you think about this? It puts you into action. So I think that there are small steps like that can be done. I think also continuing to show up, continuing to use your voice, finding your ally who can. One thing I've noticed in the office place is that sometimes women will start to speak and they'll get interrupted and nobody goes back to them. But finding that person, male or female, whoever it is, your ally, your sponsor, who will notice that and come back and say, hey, Rachel, what was it that you were trying to say, and bring you back into the conversation. Because unfortunately that stuff does happen. I don't think it's malicious. It's not always malicious, and I don't think that it's meant maliciously. But it happens. So finding your person or your group of people that can help promote you in those type of situations is always great.
So just to recap on what you said, it's a case of sitting at the table, and taking small steps. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the huge leap. Don't have to run in the room and give the presentation. Just sit at the table. Yeah. And start to chip in with some thoughts as you spend more time there, and find other people to support you. Yeah.
And I think, and I use those examples because they're ones that I have seen for years and years now, but also because those are small actions. Those are very small actions. So if you're feeling shy or if you're feeling insecure, like how hard is it to go sit in a chair? That's easy. Do it tomorrow. Do it next week. Those are easy steps, and then that'll help you gain your confidence, grow your comfort level, so that you can take the next step after that one, and the next step after that one, and the next step after that one.
So tell me about a couple of the people that have supported you.
I have always been lucky in that I have had very encouraging managers. I've had very encouraging people in high power positions, mentors, and colleagues who have recognized that I'm not the one that's going to speak up first. So that if they want my opinion and they find that they value my opinion, they're going to have to ask me. So I have been fortunate in making sure that I'm surrounded by those people, working for those people, and they know kind of how I operate and adjust accordingly.
So I'm hearing that you can proactively do that by thinking about who you work for, find out about those managers' reputations. Yep. And for those managers, what you can be doing is to actually look for the people who aren't necessarily using their voice and encourage them to do so.
Yeah. I have a piece of paper from like a personality test or leadership training or something like that. I have a piece of paper, which is one page, to give a new manager that says, Rachel won't speak up unless directly asked a question. And so I think if you know that about yourself, you don't necessarily have to take these tests to find that out. But if you know that you're feeling a little insecure, talk to your manager about it. I always take this piece of paper and I say, here, new boss, here's a little one-page thing about me. And I think that helps kind of set the stage early on in the relationship, so that there's no misunderstandings or there's no like questions of, well, why is even Rachel coming to this meeting if she's not going to talk? Oh, wait, she's thinking, she's processing. She needs time to like work through the data, and then she'll, bam, come through with a solution. So having that relationship with your manager, your people that you report to is important for both the manager and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had the opposite problem. I'm a little bit too chatty, and so I have to calm myself down and not be the first one to talk all the time.
Sure. I think that's the point, though. Like, we all have those nuances and we all operate different. And that's the beauty of human design and why we're all different and why we are all needed at the table to have that voice, because we're doing different things at different times. And the solution that we come up with together by working collaboratively is better than just the loudest voice in the room. Well, maybe not in your case if you're the loudest voice in the room.
I have a British accent, so it does help sometimes. Anyway, well, here living in the US, in England, it didn't make a difference. So, Rachel, I really loved what you said about earlier. Stop. Re-record. So, Rachel, I really loved what you said earlier when you talked about, talking to your manager, having this piece of paper. I love those personality tests because they tell us so much about ourselves. And so I've often shared them with my managers as well. Hey, this is my love language. I don't expect you to love me, but hey, my love language is words of affirmation. So, I don't really care if you give me some like office pride. They always
that was perfect. The hair flip that you did there too was perfect time.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, even things like, I know I'm super chatty. And so I'll say to my colleagues, hey, I'm super chatty, especially when I get excited. So if I'm too much, just tell me. And so having that vulnerability to talk to people about, hey, this is how I show up. These are some of my strengths. These are some of my weaknesses. And I really want you to support me in honing things so that, I'm contributing to the team the best that I can. And we're all feeling like badasses.
Yeah. And I'll even add one step further to that is when I show up with my piece of paper and I am vulnerable with my manager, I will find that most of the time, the manager then becomes vulnerable with me and says, oh, thank you for sharing. And also, if I do this thing, like call me out on it. And then my manager is not giving me permission to hold him accountable or her accountable for things that they know are their, I don't want to say faults, but they're kind of like differences among everybody else. So presenting as vulnerable often allows for that reciprocation as well.
Yeah. And I loved that when you brought the attention to the word faults, a really good way to look at it is humanity. We're all really good at different things. Exactly. And sometimes we'll say something a bit silly or, we'll dive through the door and interrupt a meeting. That's really not appropriate. It's just part of being human.
Yeah.
And I think that allowing people to show up and have some compassion for them is really important for building people's confidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what is the one piece of advice? If you could give one piece, what would you tell a young woman just starting her career today? What it takes to get through the glass ceiling?
Yeah, for me, and I've mentioned this word quite a bit through our chat here, but for me, it's about growth and learning and expanding what you have. So I would use the analogy of a tree. Think of the biggest tree that you've ever seen in your life, and remember that tree started out as a seed, and that seed looked exactly like all the other seeds at that time when that tree was first starting to grow. And not only did that seed have to get planted, and that seed had to get watered, and that seed had to first push through the ground and reach for that sunlight, but it continued to grow. It continued to adapt. It continued to become that huge, beautiful, big tree that you can picture. And we think about the tree rings and how you can tell that a tree was under stress, and maybe it didn't get water, and there was a huge drought that year, and scientists can go back and be like, oh, this was the ice age and the drought of blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, that tree was still growing, even though it was in a challenging environment at the time. So always continue to remember that you're growing, you're resilient, and you will become that tree that you want to be.
That is a beautiful image to be left with. And we could encourage people to go out and buy plants to symbolize that, except if you like me, you'd kill it. So maybe go buy a cactus. That's a much easier way.
I have succulents. They're kind of like cactuses.
Yeah. Well, Thank you, Rachel. It's been a real pleasure talking with you today. I know that many of our listeners can really resonate with some of the things that you're talking about. And I just love the fact that you're just so willing to give your heart and your experiences and offering to support people on LinkedIn. I check your inbox later. I'm pretty sure you're going to have quite a few friend requests.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity, Fiona. Thanks for letting me chat to your audience.
Absolutely. See you soon today.
Thank you for listening, everyone. We hope you now have additional tools and insights for creating your own cracks in the glass ceiling. If you think this will inspire and help others, please share this episode on your social media and leave your comments on McKayUnlimited.com/podcasts. For more tips and support as you embrace your journey through the glass ceiling, please join our community Facebook group at leadingladiesofFB.com.